Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at something really personal, your natal chart. Think of it as, like a unique cosmic map created right at the moment you were born.
Exactly. And in this deep dive, which is, specifically for you, we'll be exploring this chart. We want to really get a handle on what makes you tick, your inherent potentials, personality nuances, and maybe the general flow of your life journey.
Right.
Our mission, so to speak, is to understand the core themes, the dynamics woven into this cosmic picture.
And looking at it, something immediately jumps out. There's this significant concentration of Scorpio energy. It's right there in the first house, the house of self, of identity.
Intense.
Yeah, really intense. And it stands in fascinating contrast to these prominent Taurus placements we see over in the seventh house, which is all about partnerships.
That's a key axis, definitely.
So this interplay, this kind of push and pull between these very different energies, that feels like a central theme we need to explore.
Absolutely. It sets up a major dynamic.
Okay, so let's dive into that powerful first house first. What does it tell us about your core self?
Well, the first house, and particularly the ascendant or the rising sign, think of it as the door you walk through into the world. It's how you instinctively react and how others, initially perceive you. It's fundamental.
Okay.
And with Scorpio rising at 18 degrees, the impression you likely give off right away is one of intensity, emotional depth. Like this initial vibe acts as a filter, doesn't it? Drawing in experiences that resonate with deep emotional truths.
Yeah, and maybe creating an aura that people find intriguing, maybe even a bit challenging.
Exactly. Scorpio is a water sign, so we're talking deep feelings, intuition, that innate knowing you mentioned.
So a perceptive presence, maybe a little enigmatic.
That sums it up well. There's a natural pull to look beneath the surface, to find the real truth. Someone with Scorpio rising isn't usually satisfied with easy answers. They'll likely dig deeper, especially when things get complex or hidden.
A desire to explore the unseen.
Definitely. And here's where it gets even more potent. In that same first house, there's what we call a stellium, a significant cluster of planets, all in Scorpio.
Wow.
Which just amplifies that Scorpio signature massively.
Okay, so a real powerhouse of Scorpio shaping how you present yourself. Let's break down that stellium.
Okay, let's start with Scorpio Pluto at 4 degrees. Pluto is the planet of transformation, power, digging up what's buried.
The deep stuff.
The really deep stuff. Having it in the first house just intensifies that Scorpio drive for uncovering truths and undergoing profound personal evolution. And there's a generational aspect too, Pluto was in Scorpio during a time of major societal shifts, secrets coming out.
Right, I remember that period.
So having Pluto there suggests your very identity is somehow tied into these big themes of transformation, confronting power dynamics, both out there and within yourself.
That sounds incredibly foundational, like transformation is part of your core identity.
It really points that way. And then there's the Scorpio South node at 9 degrees.
Okay, the South Node. That's about past patterns, right? Comfort zones from maybe previous experiences or lifetimes.
Precisely. It's what feels familiar, maybe even easy, but isn't necessarily where your soul's growth lies now. With a South Node in Scorpio, there are likely some deeply ingrained patterns around intense emotions, maybe a need for control, a comfort with investigating things deeply.
Like a natural detective?
Kind of, yeah. A familiarity with hidden emotional landscapes. But the evolutionary path, shown by the North Node in Taurus, which we'll get to, involves consciously letting go of some of that intensity and control, and so moving towards grounding, patience, trust. So Scorpio is the familiar space the soul is learning to evolve from in this lifetime.
That's a crucial point. It's not bad, just the starting point for this journey.
Okay.
What about Scorpio Mercury at 10 degrees? Mercury is communication, thinking.
Right. With Mercury in Scorpio, the mind is likely sharp, penetrating, like it has X-ray vision for ideas.
Cuts right through the fluff.
Exactly. Communication is probably direct, maybe even a bit intense sometimes. It's driven by that Scorpio need to get to the heart of the matter, to articulate the underlying truth. It suggests a mind that isn't easily swayed by superficial arguments. It wants to dig deeper.
Strategic thinking too, maybe focused?
Very much so. Strategic, focused, wanting to understand the why.
Values honesty and depth in conversation then. And finally, in this first house stellium, Scorpio Saturn at 26 degrees. Saturn brings lessons? Responsibility?
Yes, Saturn often points to where we feel responsibility, where we learn through discipline, structure, sometimes limitation. Saturn in the first house, in Scorpio, this suggests an early awareness of the weight, the seriousness of personal transformation.
Like knowing change isn't easy.
Right. There might be a need to learn how to manage those powerful Scorpio emotions with self-discipline. You can also point to a journey around navigating fears. Fears about vulnerability, maybe, or about owning and expressing that powerful Scorpio nature constructively.
Learning to wield that power responsibly.
That's a good way to put it. So yeah, that first house, it's a real crucible of Scorpio energy, profoundly shaping your core self and how you meet the world.
Okay, that's a very intense foundation. Let's shift gears now to the second house. This is about values, resources, self-worth, finances. What's the energy here?
Well, the cusp, the starting point of the second house, falls in Sagittarius.
Yeah.
And that immediately suggests an approach to values and resources that's marked by freedom, expansion, big picture thinking.
Optimism about resources. Believing there's enough out there.
Yeah, a natural optimism regarding what's possible. Sagittarius seeks horizons, abundance.
But then inside the house, we have Sagittarius-Uranus at 15 degrees. Uranus is the wild card, isn't it? The planet of sudden changes, innovation.
Exactly. Uranus here can point to unconventional values. Maybe a restless approach to finances, not sticking to the tried and true.
So like sudden windfalls or losses,
Right.
or just doing money differently.
Yeah, could be both. Sudden shifts are possible, yes. But also innovative, maybe even quite unusual ideas about generating wealth. There might be a real resistance to traditional financial advice or structures, a desire to experiment, find your own way.
Interesting. Not necessarily playing it safe with money, but maybe finding unique opportunities.
Quite possibly. And adding another layer, we have the Sagittarius moon at 17 degrees in this same house. The moon is our emotional core, our needs, our comfort zone.
So an emotional need for freedom and adventure applied to self-worth and resources.
That's it. Emotional comfort might come from exploring new possibilities, maybe taking some calculated risks financially or in how you value yourself.
An optimistic emotional outlook on your own value and what you possess.
Yes, exactly. A feeling of security linked to growth, expansion, and maintaining that Sagittarian belief in potential and abundance. There's likely an emotional tie to the idea of freedom and resources.
Okay, moving around the chart to the third house. This covers communication style, learning, siblings, local community, short trips. What's the vibe here?
The third house cusp is in Capricorn. So that brings a shift in energy. More disciplined, structured,
Practical.
yeah. A more methodical feel to communication and how you learn. Perhaps a bit more serious or deliberate in how information is processed and shared.
So maybe less spontaneous chat, more considered communication.
Potentially more considered, yes. Planning your words, maybe. And then we find Capricorn, Neptune, at 1 degree in here. Neptune brings fog, imagination, idealism. How does that mix with practical Capricorn?
Yeah, that seems like an odd couple.
It is interesting. It suggests that idealism or imagination influences communication, but it's filtered through that Capricorn structure. So maybe you're drawn to understanding the big, perhaps idealistic structures of society, but you approach it practically. Or your practical communication might have a subtle, imaginative, almost poetic quality underneath.
Like finding creative ways to express practical ideas.
Could be. Or maybe sometimes a bit of ambiguity creeps into that structured communication. Neptune can do that.
Okay. And also in the third, the Capricorn lot of fortune at 11 degrees. The lot of fortune. That's like a point of ease or flow.
Yeah, often indicates where things tend to work out well, where you find well-being. In Capricorn in the third, it suggests that your sense of flow and, well, fortune might be linked to hard work and communication and learning.
So taking responsibility for how you communicate, building a solid foundation in your knowledge.
Yeah.
That brings a sense of things going right.
Exactly. Well-being through disciplined effort in your thinking, writing, speaking, and connecting with your immediate environment. Practicality pays off here, it seems.
Makes sense with the Capricorn influence. Okay, let's look at the foundation, the fourth house. Home, family, roots, our deepest sense of security.
The cusp here is in Aquarius. That immediately signals something unconventional, independent.
Different from the norm when it comes to home and family.
Likely, yes. A need for freedom, maybe a less traditional upbringing or perspective on what home even means to you personally. It might not be the typical cozy nest.
Aquarius values individuality, thinking differently. So maybe a home that encouraged that, or just felt a bit detached.
Could be either or both. And then we have Aquarius Jupiter at 7 degrees right in there. Jupiter expands, brings optimism,
So a broad, optimistic view of home and family, despite the unconventionality.
It certainly suggests that. Maybe there was a unique or progressive element to your upbringing, something that felt expansive, an emphasis on intellectual freedom, perhaps, or unusual values in the early environment.
Maybe a home filled with interesting ideas or people.
Quite possibly. It could also mean you create a home life for yourself that feels spacious, open-minded, maybe even a bit unusual.
Okay. And the Aquarius I see, the Imam Coeli, is at 18 degrees. That's the absolute root, the base of the chart.
Exactly, the deepest point. Aquarius here really reinforces that need for independence and intellectual stimulation right at your core sense of self.
A fundamental need for personal space, freedom within the home.
A very deep-seated need, yes. And again, it points back to an early home life that might have emphasized unconventionality, or maybe even a certain emotional coolness or detachment, which is sometimes associated with Aquarius.
That theme of needing space keeps coming up. And also Aquarius Vertex at 20 degrees in the fourth, the Vertex. That's like a point of fate, destiny.
Often seen that way, yes. A point sensitive to fated encounters or significant turning points, often triggered by others or external events. With the vertex in the fourth in Aquarius, it suggests that significant encounters, maybe with unusual or forward-thinking people, could really impact your life path.
Especially regarding home and foundations.
Precisely. Unexpected events or connections related to your home, family, or sense of security could lead to quite significant shifts. So maybe pay attention to those unusual people who pop into your domestic sphere.
They could be more important than they seem.
Could be quite pivotal, yes.
Okay, interesting. Now, just to round out the picture, can we briefly touch on the signs ruling the other houses and maybe highlight a few key placements there?
Sure, let's do a quick tour. The fifth house, creativity, romance, fun, self-expression, has Pisces on the cusp. Imaginative, sensitive, perhaps dreamy approach there.
Nice.
Sixth house, work, daily routines, health, service cusp in Aries. So energetic, taking initiative, maybe a bit impatient in those areas.
Go-getter in the daily grind.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And the seventh house cusp, partnerships, we already noted. This key one is Taurus, really emphasizing that need for stability, sensuality, groundedness in relationships.
And we know there are crucial placements inside that seventh house.
Absolutely critical ones.
Yeah.
We've got the Taurus North Node here. Remember the Scorpio South Node in the first? This is the destination. Your soul's growth is towards embracing stability, appreciating the senses, finding comfort in the material world, especially within partnerships.
Learning to build and trust.
Exactly. Then there's Taurus Black Moon Lilith at 15 degrees. Lilith often points to the raw, untamed, perhaps suppressed parts of ourselves. And Taurus in the seventh.
Intense desires around sensuality, possessions, but in relationships.
Yeah, maybe powerful, potentially even taboo desires related to security, pleasure, ownership within partnerships. Could also indicate where you feel restricted or frustrated around these themes. It's complex.
Definitely adds an edge.
And finally, the Taurus descendant at 18 degrees. This is the flip side of the ascendant. It describes qualities you're drawn to, maybe project onto partners.
So attracting or seeking partners who are stable, sensual, practical, grounded, offering security and loyalty.
That's the strong indication. It really paints a picture of seeking that reliable Taurian energy in close one-to-one relationships.
Makes sense. Balancing the intense first house. Okay, eighth house.
Eighth house transformation, shared resources, intimacy, death, taxes. The deep stuff has Gemini on the cusp. So an intellectual, communicative approach to these intense topics, maybe talking things through. And Gemini Chiron at 14 degrees is here. Chiron is the wounded healer point, and Gemini in the eighth.
Wounds related to communication, intellect, especially in intimacy or shared resources.
That's the idea. Maybe difficulties expressing deep truths or feeling misunderstood in vulnerable situations. Healing might come through sharing knowledge, open communication about difficult topics, finding intellectual connection and deep bonds.
Okay. Ninth house. Philosophy, higher learning, travel.
Cancer on the cusp.
Yeah.
So an emotional, intuitive, maybe security-oriented approach to beliefs and broadening horizons, feeling safe in your philosophy.
10th house career, public image.
Leo on the cusp. Needs to shine, wants recognition, creative, expressive approach to career. And the Leo MC, the midheaven at 18 degrees, confirms this. That point of highest aspiration points towards leadership, visibility, creative expression in your public role.
Wants to be noticed for their work.
Seems likely. 11th house friends, groups, hopes, dreams, Virgo on the cusp. Practical, analytical, maybe service-oriented approach to friendships and goals. And Virgo Mars at 23 degrees is here. Mars is energy, drive, in Virgo in the 11th.
Efficient, focused energy towards goals. Detail-oriented within groups. Maybe a bit critical.
Could be all of that. practical, efficient drive in pursuing aspirations and working within social networks, getting things done methodically.
And finally, the 12th house. The subconscious, hidden things, spirituality.
Libra on the cusp. A deep, maybe unconscious, desire for harmony, balance, beauty, relationship, even in the hidden realms of life. And we find the Libra sun at 24 degrees here. Your core identity, the sun, is focused on Libra themes, balance, justice, partnership, but operating from this more subconscious behind-the-scenes place.
Interesting. Not overtly Libran, perhaps.
Maybe less obvious on the surface, more of an inner driver.
Yeah.
And Libra Venus at 1 degree is also here. Venus loves beauty, harmony, relationships. And the 12th?
A natural pull towards beautiful, harmonious connections, but maybe in private or on a spiritual level.
Yes, perhaps finding beauty in solitude or having relationships that have a hidden or spiritual dimension, a love of peace operating subtly.
Okay, wow. So bringing it all back, we started with that really powerful, intense Scorpio energy in the first house, that drive for personal transformation, digging deep into the self.
Right, that very potent core.
And we see it balanced or maybe in constant dialogue with this strong pull towards stability, sensuality, and grounded connection in the 7th house, that Taurus energy focused on partnership.
Exactly. That Scorpio-Taurus axis across the 1st and 7th houses is absolutely central. It's this dynamic tension, this interplay between the need to transform yourself and the need for stable, reliable connection with others.
It's not really an either, is it?
Not at all. It presents this incredible opportunity for self-discovery through relationship and relationship through self-discovery. It's about learning to integrate these energies. How does your deep personal evolution inform your connections? And how do your connections provide the grounding needed for that evolution? It's about finding the synergy.
So for you listening, maybe take a moment. Does this resonate? Do you feel that pull sometimes between wanting deep personal change and really needing that stable, secure connection in your life?
It's a common human dynamic. But this chart really highlights it for you. This cosmic blueprint suggests this ongoing evolution of you in relation to others. It's a dance.
A fascinating dance, yeah. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, we've looked at your natal chart as this unique snapshot of potential. We've really zeroed in on those significant Scorpio and Taurus energies, especially across that 1st, 7th house axis.
And explore that overarching theme, transformation of the self, deeply intertwined with your relationships and partnerships.
So maybe a final thought to leave you with, something to mull over. How can you consciously work with that drive for personal evolution, that intense inner world, while also honoring and cultivating your need for stability, grounding, and real connection in your life?
Yeah, what might this unique map suggest about how you continue to unfold, how your sense of self keeps evolving, specifically in the context of the people you're closest to?
Definitely some powerful themes to consider. We really hope you'll reflect on what stood out for you today, what insights resonated, and maybe what further questions this exploration has sparked. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.